Welcome back to another beta test episode where we talk about a tech tool, we look at a lesson that you could possibly do with it, and we take a look at a couple examples that you could produce with your students. And the goal of today is to look at a site called AnswerGarden. And AnswerGarden is a formative assessment tool, and they say from their site that it is a minimal tool for a maximum feedback. And that's sort of what I was looking for when I started searching for formative feedback tools or formative assessment tools just the other week, because I wanted something without all the bells and whistles, without all the gamification that went along with it. I wanted something simple, sleek, elegant, that I could quickly use with my students at a moment's notice. And I think that this does just that. So I think it's time for beta test. Alright, so this is AnswerGarden, and it is answergarden.ch. That is the URL that you're going to enter in. And from AnswerGarden, you don't need to log in. There is no login that you do. You quickly set it up. It is one question at a time. There's really not that much prep that goes along with it. You can set it up ahead of time and request sort of an access link, and I'll show you how to set that up in just a minute. But let's dive right into some examples, and then we'll double back of how else you could use this in the classroom. But the tech tool here is AnswerGarden, and where they say a minimal tool for maximum feedback, they sort of got that right on the nose, because it is a very minimal tool. You pose a question, and if you've ever used a site like Wordle, where you have word art that shows up on the screen based on the number of characters or responses that you get, they sort of merge that with a student's response tool or that you use in the classroom. And that's what we have here. So a merge of those two tools together. So when you click this plus button, we end up getting a new screen that pops up where, and I will jump through a tutorial of briefly how to set that up. It's very intuitive, but you click the plus button in the top right hand corner. No login required. You can do this at any time with your students, so if you need to, just get a quick little understanding of where your students are, or if you need to spark a discussion with your students, you could definitely do that, or as an icebreaker. So this is the first way that you could possibly use this in your classroom. So maybe one of those first day activities that you want to do is get a read on how everybody's doing, or get to know your students a little bit more. So what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? A pretty generic question that you could possibly ask, or you can change this up and ask anything you want. But what I want to show you here is that what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? And students can enter in this unique URL, or what you can do is share a QR code with your students up on the screen, and they can scan it, they can enter in their word, or in this case, their flavor of ice cream that they like. Or they can just simply enter in this URL or click it from your Google Classroom or Canvas page. So that is one way that they can access this. And it's live, so instantaneously you're going to see those responses show up as soon as you refresh the page. So if I enter this in, so it looks like vanilla is our top score. And let me show you what happens if I choose vanilla again. So I chose vanilla, pressed enter, and I'm going to go ahead and press vanilla again. And let's go chocolate chip. All right, I entered that in, and chocolate chip got a little bit larger. One of the smallest ones, and you can see here if you hover over them what the largest one was. So it says 7 students selected vanilla, 3 said chocolate chip, 2 rocky road, 1 for cookie dough, 1 for mint. Let's go ahead and throw in another mint there. And mint will get a little bit larger. There you go. So you can visually see almost like a word cloud if you've used one of those before. But that's how they show the responses on the page. And what you can do is you can expand this so you can see all of those responses on the screen with your students at the same time. And it's just a fun little interactive way that you can review content with your students or get an understanding of where they are. So as an icebreaker activity, pretty fun to do with your students. You can add in new ones. So say that your other flavor that you like is black raspberry. Okay, we can enter that in, and that's going to be a new flavor that shows up. And there are a couple different settings that you can make when you set up an AnswerGarden question, and I'll show you that when we go through the walkthrough. Okay, next up. Now, let's say that you're discussing science and you just got done the cell structure and you want to see if your students remember it. Maybe they're in groups, maybe they're independent, and you're just trying to get overall all of the terminology under your belt because that's a very big key concept there. So you say to your students, okay, we're going to go over to AnswerGarden and let's list all the parts of the cell that we know. Okay, or maybe this is a pre-assessment that you want to try with your students. List all the parts of the cell that you know, and you got the lysosome or the ribosomes, the nucleolus, and then somebody says, oh, well, we also have the cytoplasm. Okay, or the mitochondria. So we can enter in those text answers as well. So all of these are just generic ways that you could use this. So anytime that you pose a question, it could be, what's the theme to this book? Or what's the weather outside today, depending on what your question is for your students. So this could be really helpful and really handy when you're trying to just get a quick formative assessment of your students. And instead of doing maybe thumbs up, thumbs down, this is one way to do it. So let's go ahead and create a new AnswerGarden. I'm going to show you the background view of it in this beta test today. So to create a new AnswerGarden, we click this plus button, and that will open up this screen where you create a topic. And this is the bare minimum that you have to do. You can get to here and get started where you type in answergarden.ch, boom, plus button, question, enter, and you're off to the races. So that's the bare minimum that you have to do. So let's go ahead and say, how are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 4? Okay, and then you can explain to your students that a 1 is feeling pretty sad and a 4 feeling pretty happy. So this is totally anonymous. It's not tied to specific students, just so you can get an overall feel of where they're at. Maybe this is social emotional learning unit that you're doing with your students. And you're talking about just understanding what your feelings are, and it's okay to express those feelings. Here are where the other options come in. So AnswerGarden mode, you have a brainstorming mode in which you can submit an unlimited number of answers, but you can only submit that answer once. So you don't get repeat answers. You're trying to generate as many as you want. So maybe instead of that question up there, we can say, what is the new, or how about come up with a new tech gadget to invent. Okay, or what is your business name? Okay, and students have to brainstorm all of those ideas. Classroom mode, so that they can make unlimited copies of the same answer. Classroom mode is where they can only submit it once, and then moderator mode is where you get the answers and you only publish maybe the correct ones. So say that you have like that cell structure, you only want the correct ones showing up. You would do the moderator mode where you would see the responses on your screen first, you would approve them, and then the correct ones would show up on that published link. And then when you're all done, when you want to close that out, otherwise it would just remain live, you would lock it up and then no more questions can be submitted. And I'll show you how to access this later on. So what should our next invention be? Okay, and this is where we can have our brainstorm mode up, where this is like having sticky notes. Like instead of sticky noting all over the room, you can have an AnswerGarden set up. Answer length, 20 and 40 characters, so they really have to think about how they're going to answer a question and fit it within 20 or 40 characters. Spam filter, if you turn it on, it'll detect and remove unwanted answers. So, like words that you know students will try and type to get onto the screen if you are not moderating. So it will filter those, which is a really good plus if you have that turned on. Highly recommend it. So what should our next invention be? A electric flying desk. I don't know. Press enter, there we go. Electric flying desk is definitely the next invention that's out there. I don't know how practical that would be, but then I wanted to show you down here that you have a refresh button down here at the bottom right. You have on the left, you have a share button where you can share this link with a bunch of social media outlets. So if you're at a conference, instead of just talking about your classroom, you can share it that way. You can share it on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, MySpace apparently. You can share it at a bunch of different places. You can export this as results on Twitter. You can export it to Wordle. That's pretty cool. You can export it as a ping image. So as an image file, you can download it. You can actually download the results as a CSV file. So you can download all of the answers. So if you wanted to save that data for later use, you can do that. You have the QR code that I showed you earlier that students can scan. And then the admin section is where you can show where you can edit all the settings as you go through. So this is AnswerGarden. Highly recommend you check it out if you're just looking for a quick assessment tool, a formative assessment tool that doesn't have all the bells and whistles of some of the other platforms that are out there. So AnswerGarden was today's beta test. Pretty cool. I give it a thumbs up for the edge. I'll catch you next time.